Welcome back to the Bumper Breakfast. Yes, we're talking about the stories that made the front page of the papers this morning. And I want to begin with the Guardian newspaper, the banner headline of the Guardian newspaper. My director can put it up there, and then we take a look at these stories together. Now, some of these stories, I saw one particular one where Governor Akeredolu, Aketi for short, Rotimi Akeredolu, was accusing soldiers of inducing the jailbreaks in Ondo State. He was specific about how these all back and forth began. Yesterday, also in the news, it was announced that another jailbreak, happened as well. Hatakan police and all that. The Ondo State governor has condemned the withdrawal of officers of the Nigerian Army from correctional centers and accused the army of inducing the jailbreaks. He received a briefing of the situation from the Commissioner of Police, Oyediran Oyeyemi, and expressed concern that the action could encourage jailbreaks in the state and other parts of the country. Said he wondered why soldiers would be withdrawn from correctional centers, which also belong to the federal government. It belongs to the federal government. You withdrew the soldiers from there. But of course, while we're still taking a look at the stories, the Southwest governors have scanted Buhari on state police, and they insist on Amotekun. That's also another story on the front page, banner headline, particularly on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. More stories. You have riders like why state police is not an option. Buhari defends his stand. He had a conversation on Channels Television yesterday. A PDP chair, president is comfortable with killings in the land. That's coming from the PDP chairman. Southwest governors fault current federalism, condemn police officers' disrespect of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, insist Lagos must deploy Amotekun now. Malami confirms sending policemen to Magodo and slams the Southwest governors' criticism. Wow. And then Dawn Commission, ARG, Okorie, others reiterate call for state police. Magodo invasion illegal, only restructuring can save Nigeria, says Adegburuwa and Oguye. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari restated his opposition to the state governments having their own police. The president made this known in an interview. He said state police is not an option, as in he was quoted as saying state police is not an option. Mr. Fatuke, what do you think? Let's begin with that comment of the federal government. It is obvious to everybody that the Nigerian police force cannot do enough.
Thank you very much, Tomi Singh. In public discourse such as this, one tries to be as much as possible to be very balanced. And the argument of Mr. President is not far-fetched. Of course, students of politics and students of contemporary Nigerian history readily tell you that state police has its downsides. And Mr. President quoted that when he was asked, and he said, okay, between the state governors and their local governments, you bring in the issue of state police. What if that governor now becomes so unwieldy and decides to use the police, the instrument of police, against his opponents? Very true. Very, very true. And to the extent also that, okay, you want to go and remove a local government chairman that is insisting on his rights, and you, the almighty governor, don't like him from Adam, you might
decide to manipulate the system.
To use the system. In the First Republic, we remember somehow, somewhat, how the instrumentality of state police, regional police, or some form of autonomy to the regions were manipulated, and we remember the wild west. Good logic, it sounds, but the flip side of it is, so we don't have state police. we have Central Command. And under this same Central Command that Mr. President is supporting, we haven't seen efficiency, we haven't seen effectiveness, we've seen virtually everything that, you talk about.
The ineptitude of the police force.
So what we are saying basically is that the inefficiencies and the mindsets that we have at the local level are the people that go to the center to do exactly the same. When Alexander Pope talked about looking at forms of government, that fools should contend. It's like fools contending on this matter. If the mindset is not for fairness, for equity, and for justice, and if you are somebody who will always, defer to undermining rule of law, morality, and ethics.
Because of history?
Either way, still does not go. So, and as they say, it is only a foolish woman and a foolish man, as the case might be, that will continue to try the same thing or go the same path and thinking of getting a different result. Another reason is the fact that the federating units that we have in Nigeria, 36 and Federal Capital Territory plus the Federal Capital Territory, how many of them are viable? Mr. President spoke about viability of being able to fund state police. Oh, okay, Lagos state government can do it. A few states can do it. What about states that are not
viable? But Mr. Fatuke, I want you to hold that thought a little bit, and then let's go to this fact. One of the things that Mr. President also said is the fact that find out the relationship between the local governments and the state governments. Are they getting, at the third tier of government, getting what is due from the state government? And I'm asking the question now, because they are not getting what is due from the state government, as this empowered, or does this now mean that the federal government should superimpose itself on the state government? Is that what federalism? Because it looks as if we're no longer practicing federalism to me. I had a post yesterday, and I was kind of like thinking, the government we studied in secondary school, and the careful way our teachers explained to us what federalism, unitarianism, communism, and all of the systems of government, what exactly they are. The systems of government, what we practice, doesn't seem to me from that government perspective like federalism. Does this now mean that the federal government can superimpose itself on the state government, irrespective of under the guise or because the state government is not giving its due, the local government its due? Clearly,
the Constitution, no matter how wrought it is very clear. There is no way the federal government can superimpose or induce or force itself on states. Just like the states are not supposed to
do the same to the local.
So the point is clear. If your point this morning in your statement is to ask if we are practicing federalism, of course we are practicing federalism in the reverse.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so is
federalism
the leasing away, then we have the federal spelled from the back.
I tell you, it is more of, even unitary, is more of authoritarian.
Oh, authoritarianism.
Do what I say and not what I do.
So it's the fact that we tell our children, don't do what I do, just do what I say.
If it suits you, fine. You say you are practicing federal. If things change a little bit, you say you are doing federal, and then you do exactly, the opposite. And the whole thing got K-leg from 1999. I'll just mention this in passing, that our leaders, our politicians have not only been self-serving, they have come on based on the fact that if it suits them, they go ahead and do. Or how else will you explain that in 1999, May 29, when retired General Obasanjo became president of this country and was sworn in, there was no constitution. The constitution was only released a few days after. Where is that kind of thing done? In other words, I am saying to you, Professor Yadudu and his group were busy tinkering and putting a few things together. And I dare say, my dear president at that time, Buhari, Obasanjo was very giddy, happy. The constitution that brought you in, that you have not read, 1, 2, okay, eventually the whole thing was manipulated, and that's the beginning of the problems that we have now. And you did not feel that constitution is a contraption that cannot take Nigeria forward, and virtually all others after him.
And we're still using the same constitution.
And wasn't by President Muhammadu Buhari, who, like lawyers say, see a lacuna, see, agree, disagree, to agree, and has decided to knock the nail into our coffin in terms of our fault lines. My point, therefore, is we are not practicing a federal constitution. The constitution itself on paper lies on its head, and different leaders have come. Look, the point I am also making is that beyond Buhari, go and bring an angel to run this constitution that we are talking about is going to fall flat and terrible on its face.
Let's look at this, Mr. Fatunke. Now, one of the things that also came up in that conversation, which also brings to mind, the issue of federalism, the issue of the amendment of our constitution, and all of that. Nigerians may not trust this crop of legislators to do the job that is needed to take the country to where it needs to be legally. When we're talking about the rule of law, Nigerians may not, I use the word may not trust this set of people. However, they've continued to ask that amend the constitution. Like you said, a few people tinkering a document. That's exactly what is happening as well now. Representatives of the people tinkering the document in such a way that will favor the people, that should rather favor the people. But the electoral amendment bill is another one. The president mentioned also yesterday that if they add consensus candidates and indirect primaries into the constitution, into the electoral amendment bill, it will definitely sign it. Isn't that taking us back to where we were in
a manner of speaking? Yes and no. I have always argued, call it direct, call it indirect, and call it now being introduced a shade in between of consensus. Yorubas, from where I come, talk about Omi Eko, Ekoni, the pap water and the pap is still of the same family, just a bit of a shade. Yes, Mr. President has a point in saying that the law should not prescribe for parties. That assumes that the parties themselves must be practicing internal democracy.
And that's the question, Mr. Fatunke. You are familiar with the system of government. Let's look at the two big ways in the country, the PDP, the APC. Which of them is practicing internal democracy?
I dare say no. When it suits you, you shift to the right. If it doesn't suit you, you shift to the left. And Mr. President was asked that, direct primaries brought you on. And he made a statement, and I'd like people to go on the line and look at that statement. He kept on saying, as far as this was concerned, do you know what we did to uproot PDP My point is, Mr. President has made his point known. The tribunes of the people, or the representatives of the people, that's what they are called, have also said, yes, there is no way they can upturn or veto, and that is clear. What remains in the minds of Nigerians is that the average Nigerian, including yours sincerely, I don't trust anybody, including Mr. President, in terms of saying what he says sometimes.
No, but Mr. President is clear, and I think his thoughts and direction
I am
agrees
aware Mr. President is clear.
His thoughts agree with his actions, don't you think?
I will believe him.
Even if you don't agree with what he said, his thoughts agree with his actions.
I have agreed to the extent that he says, allow parties to choose whatever it is
that works for them.
And if that is done,
which means we may not necessarily get the best hand.
If that is done, listen, if that is done, I'm going to append my signature to the Electoral Bill 2010 as amended. He said it. And I think was achieved. I've heard statements made by this president, made by people that you would never, that you consider to be men and women of honor, and then at the last minute, some things, will now then change.